At the recent Barbies Expo and Trade Fair, President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Devdat Indar, explained the impact of the agriculture sector on the private sector. Narima Ali reports.
Mr. Devdat Indar, the guest speaker at the opening ceremony of the 13th Annual Barbies Expo and Trade Fair, in his feature address, shared insights on the agricultural sector of Guyana and its impact on the private sector.
Agriculture represents 70% of the GDP. So the current trend in Guyana serves to illustrate some level of decline or demise of the agriculture industry as it undergoes some of the structural changes we are seeing, especially in the downsizing of the sugar industry. Guyana is uniquely poised to utilize these opportunities to propel economic growth in the agricultural sector by simply growing food. However, this will require coordinated effort on both from the public sector and the private sector towards the realization that Guyana can become the breadbasket of the Caribbean, which it once was, but these days seems to be eluding us. It is showing up in the markets when you see food prices are going up. If we don't produce our food locally, only two things can happen. One is that you do without the food, or two is that you import the food. And when you import the food, most times the invoice comes in a US currency invoice. So you have to find US dollars to buy that food. When you do that, you're subject to the mercy of war market prices and exchange differences. So it is better for us to grow our own food.
He mentioned that the closure of the sugar estates have already begun to bring about depression in businesses in the country.
That sugar, the absence of it in that area saw some level of depression in business there. Not just in the sugar industry, but on the spin-off industry, all of the shops, all of the corner mom and pop businesses, the markets, what you see is that people are having their goods on their shelves and nobody's buying it because nobody have money to spend, simply. So just imagine that with 4 other estates being closed, which is namely Enmore, Skeldon, Rosal, and Wales. So Wales already gone. So you have 3 more to go.
Mr. Indar also stressed on the point that Gaisuku has a finance operating efficiency problem that causes the gross income to be low, and in many cases there is a loss rather than a profit after sugar is sold.
When a commission of inquiry has launched into the financial affairs of Gaisuku, in the commission of inquiry on page 21, volume 1, that was chaired by Mr. Parvatan, and a section number 5.22 claims that Gaisuku has $82 billion of debt. Now if I pack up $82 billion, I think I'll fill that entire square there, where all you are sitting. So $82 billion is not a little money. So I decided to check on this thing because I understand it will be mind-boggling to understand some company with a board of directors and so much employees can allow a company to get into debt so heavily and leverage a company that means so much to Guyana to that extent that it can collapse on its own weight. In my checks, I found out that the $82 billion is not debt. Now people, debt is interest-bearing debt or non-interest-bearing debt. But $82 billion represent liabilities, long-term liabilities. So there's a difference between liabilities and a difference between debt. Debt is a form of liability. I hope you understand. So let me just break it down for you. In the financial statements of 2015 for Gaisuku, they had $16.6 billion allocated to what you call deferred tax liabilities. Now, deferred tax is not a cash liability. You can't take money out of your pocket and pay somebody for deferred tax. It is an accounting treatment based on an accounting standard to smooth out earnings when people try to manipulate them. So it is not a cash debt. So it's not a debt. It is a liability that you do not have to pay anyone. What it does, it recycles itself through the profit and loss every year, but that changes as you invest more into your business. So there's not something that is realized at any point in time. You cannot pay it to anyone. So if you take the 2 billion and you take out the 16.6 billion, that is one that you do not have to pay. So the debt figure is questionable. The second item is a figure for employment benefit obligation of $32.8 billion they have in Gaisuku books that it says debt. It is not debt. It is a post-retirement obligation that when employees go on their retirement, a small part of that goes into your current liability that is recognized as current liability in Gaisuku's financial statement, but it is not a debt that you have to go in your pocket this afternoon or the end of the year and say you have to pay all of that money. It does not come like that. It does not come like as a heavy thing that to drop on the organization. It comes in small bits and pieces as people retire from their jobs. Right, so if you add those two, you will get around $60 billion. So $60 billion out of that $82 billion that we've been hearing a lot about, it's not debt. It is liabilities that you don't have to take the money out now. If you wind up the business, well then you have problems there, because if you have to retrench people and fire them, well then you have to find that money to pay them. And that is simply the accounting of it. It's simply the financing of it. So from the private sector, we disagree with that figure because we've checked it and it's not correct in our view.
In closing, Mr. Indar said that the private sector is appealing to the government to put a hold on closing the other 3 estates because there will be a drain in the economy. Narima Ali, Channel 8 News.